Let's go ahead and call the August 21st MPO meeting to order. Do we have questions?
We have.
All right. Our first item of this day is the vote on the approval of the agenda. Second by Des Moines, second by Claude. Any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And it is approved. Up next, we have a vote the approval of the June meeting minutes. Motion to approve. Second. Got any second by Des Moines. Any discussion on the June meeting minutes?
I was online. I didn't know I was listed here as absent. Do I get credit?
It's all right. Yes, we'll make that correct. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. Minutes are approved. Up next. Public comments. You have any online or in person that wishes to speak? Hearing none. Move on to our consent and vote. Would entertain a motion on this, but if you guys have questions independently on any days or we have to answer those after the consent. Second by Clyde, second by West Des Moines. Any discussion on the consent? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those same sign. Thank you. Consent is approved. Next, we have a report and vote on transportation capital improvement project program. Jen.
Hello, everyone. As you probably know, the Transportation Capital Improvement Program, also known as the TCIP, annual report of all the transportation-related projects happening across the region. This document is compiled from our technical committee. Those members send over the community CIPs as well as an Excel sheet to make this document for everyone. Over here is a table overview of spending for fiscal years 2026 to 2029 per community. It's broken up into different project categories, starting with streets, followed by intersection projects that include roundabouts or traffic signals, followed by bridge projects, parking lot projects, traffic studies, and then followed by active transportation. As you may be familiar with, staff is working on an active transportation plan that will be discussed a little bit later as well. But that will include our trail project and our sidewalk projects, followed by our transit category for DART. Here's some tables showing a bit more data visualization of funding. So this pie graph is showing you from the total amount of spending for fiscal years 2026 to 2029, 66% of that spending is going to our street projects, followed by 19% going to our bridge projects. This bar graph here is showing our funds by fiscal year. So we're seeing that there's been an increase in spending in fiscal year 2027, followed by a decrease in fiscal year 2028, followed by a slight increase in spending in fiscal year 2029 from fiscal year 2028. This is a map overview of all the projects that are happening across the region that were sent over. Our line data is going to be showing street projects, traffic study projects, and those active transportation projects with the trail and sidewalk projects. And then the point data is showing our bridge projects, our intersection projects, followed by our parking lot projects. Over here is our degree of transportation disadvantage map. So this layer is going to be provided by the MPO. It's on our website as well. But basically, this is showing that 32% of our region's population is living within a moderate to significant degree of transportation disadvantage. And within those census tracts, 24% of overall funding is being allocated to projects within those census tracts. I'm going to go back so you can look at this map. Online, there's also a story map available for you that you can look at. It has an interactive version of this map, so you can look a bit deeper into projects where funding is being spent and such. Are there any questions?
The 24% is that number of projects or dollars?
No, such funding of dollars of funding. So in those census tracts, these projects, 24% of the money is being spent on those projects within those census tracts.
I didn't see it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
yeah.
Just want to point out one good is already triggered from the summer from other states. So this is a project for doing this is trying to get this wrapped up before she starts on the school day next week. The other thing I want to point out is if you go back a couple of slides to the table of funding, you can see there about $1.7 billion is what is slated to be spent over the next 4 years. If you compare that to what the MPO awards over that same time period, the MPO worked on $78 million. That's about 4.6% of the MPO's money for the compared to the overall spending. I just want to point that out. You know, we tend to focus on what MPO does, and it's important, it's good, and it's a lot of money to allocate, but it's really just a drop in the bucket compared to all the other funding that's going out there. So that's one reason we like to do this project and put this together for you, so you can see the full scope of what's going on across the region here in the next several years. It's good to be able to see this too, and like Jen said, it's interactive. They can see it, it's construction going on. Type it in there and zoom in and see what's going on. Be able to tell about the bother intelligence. You can go really look at it. So those are a couple of reasons you like to do this.
All right, any questions? All right, thank you, Janet, there is a fork and a vote, so we entertain a motion. West Point, by the board, discussion on this. We got all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Approved. Moving on, item 7, active transportation plan update, Alice.
Thank you. So just a couple months ago, actually, way before all of our summer started, and now as we kind of have wrapped up summer, we've gone through quite a bit of kind of the beginning stages of active transportation plans. We want to bring that to you, just kind of remind you what we're up to, and then talk about what's coming next for us. So when we started this out, really defining what active transportation is, the Connect plan was very much a trails focused plan. So this is going to include streets and trails. We have a lot of safety pieces, safe routes to school, all those kinds of things built into that. And so we'll really be focusing on highlighting the gems of our trails, finding those gaps we still need to work on there, but also really leaning towards the safety pieces that the MPO has taken on. One of the things you've not heard is that we have not, or I mean, you've not seen a steering committee. This is quite intentional because this is such a new plan and we're adding these other components to it, as well as the fact that we have new principles and a mission and a vision and a lot of metamorphosis has happened at the MPO over the last couple of years. We're going to use a process to define in the next couple of months what that future steering committee will look like, rather than saying this is a steering committee that will steer where this goes. So we're going to kind of do this backwards, but it is a process for outcome. And if you're a planning student formerly or currently or anything like that, this is something that we all tussle with, but it seems like would kind of lean towards the best outcomes there. So the scope, again, the Connect plan was for all of Central Iowa. We have a lot of regional trails that run outside of the MPO region, and we worked with CERTA previously on the last plan. And so we're going to try to continue to work, especially on those regional trail pieces with that agency going forward as well. To kind of get to what these steering committees will look like, what the, how this will kind of all come together. Janet, myself, and Addison have been going out to all of your communities. Most of your communities have actually been hit so far. We have a couple more in the next couple of weeks, but we've been having what we're calling walkabouts. We're really trying to harvest some seeds from your technical committee members as far as what kind of pieces do we need to take into account. We are regional planners, we're not city planners, we're not city engineers, things like that. So how can we best incorporate some of these things? So it's been a really great, honestly, a really great learning process, to also building a relationship. We had not ever gone out to our member communities and met with technical staff before. And so this is giving us a little bit more of a rapport with your staff as well. Coming up on those pieces. We've also been reviewing all the things that have been going on, right? We had an LRTP update. We had the new comprehensive safety action plan, obviously the Connect plan, and all those other things. And so that is all stuff that's in the hopper right now too. And then we also have a freight plan update coming up. And so taking all of that, those pieces into account as we go forward. One of the things we're starting to develop is just the structure of the plan. And one of the things that we want to make sure is that we start having consistent goals across all of our plans underneath the MPO. So our LRTP says that there are the 4 goals for the region, and we're going to do our best to have that active transportation plan fill in those 4 goals. This is how these parts of the transportation fill into our long range goals. Also, as you might know, I like to be a pretty realistic person. In the last plan, it said the MPO will build bike facilities. I don't actually know what that means. There was no real directive. And so stuff like that is likely not to make it into the plan. We know what the MPO really has as directives through our strategic planning and guides, things like that. And so it really will say, this is what the MPO is capable of. Here's what each of the cities really want. Here's some of the things we work on together as a regional piece. And this is how some of the partners could be there. So very much making this for some communities a bike ped plan, a mini bike ped plan that's baked in if they don't already have something like that, or updating and putting those pieces in another plan as we go out for grants. And so through that, through all of the outreach and things we've done so far, we're building out community profiles. What do each of the community's transportation systems look like? Because internally, it's kind of a hodgepodge right now, so we're just trying to collect and kind of streamline some of that stuff. I'm actually in control of this. So on our horizon, once school starts, we'll lose a little bit of Janet's time, but Addie, Carl, and myself continue on. So Addie's going to be leading a level of stress analysis and some corridor walk audits. We're actually working with AARP and American Walks, and soon you'll be hearing about this walk audit workshop October 1st that we'll be hosting in the Dogtown area. And we're also taking the walk audit and using walk audits as part of our engagement to our APA Iowa conference. It's here in Ankeny on October 10th. I believe I got the date right this time. And also one of the things we haven't asked from the communities is for a lot of data so far, because we don't want to come back and say, now I need this, now I need that, now I need this. And so I would expect by the time we roll around to Thanksgiving, we'll say, hey, between now and say MLK Day, these are the data pieces that we'll need at your leisure and with your time. I know some folks on technical committee build out budgets, so they might need a little bit more time in that area. So giving the width and breadth of time and of the data wants and needs that we have out there. We are continuing regional walkabouts. We'll work with a lot of the bike ped partners, bike ped roundtable partners next, as well as having a lot of listening sessions throughout the metropolitan area. So we'll be pulling together school districts, chambers of commerce, a lot of the different sectors that have been engaged with the MPO at some point, might not be fully engaged right now. They're having those conversations about what this looks like. And in the meantime, Carl is going to be leading the charge on getting our regional trails, gaps, needs, priorities, and that kind of stuff going. Obviously, this is a lot to distill. And so as this is all going on, we now have a new noodle nut that we are really sitting down. Like, what does this mean? We have a lot of comments, we have a lot of information. How do we move this forward? So you'll see us all kind of scribbling and doing the planning thing. And so we, over the next couple months, do expect to draft a chapter for the regional trails. And over the next couple months, we'll really start to see what some of the committees and working groups going forward that come out of this plan or contribute to this plan will look like. So just wanted to kind of give you an update in case you see us out there. It's likely that you're going to hear more about that workshop coming up in the next couple of days, really, as we just kind of finalize those details this week. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Do you have any questions?
All right. Yeah.
Next, we have a report on long range transportation plan amendment or revision. Got it.
Good afternoon, everyone. We need to take a look at our long-range transportation plan and make a couple of edits to it. This was adopted last fall. This is one of our core documents. The long-range transportation plan outlines our vision for the transportation system, includes projects going out up to 20 years. It really lays out what our investments are going to look like. Two things have happened since that plan was adopted last fall that warrant some edits. The first of those is the completion and adoption of the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, which moves on targets as it relates to safety. And the second of these is during our federal review, our certification review, the Federal Highway suggested that we consider adding projects beyond the 10-year horizon. The plan as it stands right now only went out 10 years. And the reason for that was because a lot of our jurisdictions said we didn't really know comfortably what we're going to be spending beyond that. So our solution here is to open it up and offer that as a possibility if they want, if the jurisdictions do want to add projects beyond that 10-year horizon. So we're looking at the process for updating the plan here. We have two options before us. One is an amendment, one is a revision. It really just comes down to how big the changes are we talking about. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We have spoke to your technical committee members, offered up to them if your jurisdictions have transportation projects that they would like to add into the LRTP that are beyond that 10-year horizon. Please let us know. Please let us know by August 29th, and we can make that change at this time. The other change that we would be doing then is updating the performance measures in the plan to align with the Vision Zero that was adopted as part of the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. So just some of the numbers are going to change to zeros. Not really that big of a change, but we want to make sure that the LRT does reflect set in the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. So the next steps here are we'll assess whether we need to do a full amendment or a revision. Really, that just changes whether or not you want to have a vote on it or not. We'll probably put it for you for a vote regardless. Our process says we need a vote if there's an amendment. We don't necessarily need a vote if it's just a revision. But either way, we'll bring it back to you and make sure you're all comfortable with it and have opportunity to sign off. So we anticipate being back to you with some proposed changes. We don't anticipate them being very significant at this point. Mostly we're anticipating some numbers changing in the performance measures. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Governor. Moving on, we have a report certification of follow-up. Bill.
Thank you. Last time we met in June, Federal Highway presented on the certification review. One of the questions that council people asked was, what are we going to do with all recommendations? So we put together that in the packet. We also put a document on the table before you that goes through each of the recommendations and outlines what we're planning to do about that. I do have slides to go through each one of those, but in the interest of time, if you want me to go through this, I will. If you just want to read the document, read it, have questions, I'll forego that. But just to suffice to say, we do have a plan for each of those. One of them is going to just presented for the update of the long-range plan. We'll talk a little bit later about some other things. If there are questions, please let me know. But you just want to make sure you're aware that you have that plan.
Any questions for Governor? All right, sorry, Bill. Thank you. Move on to our legislative update.
Couple of things to make you aware of. The first is that there's ongoing federal scrutiny of federal surface transportation programs. We're seeing this manifest in a couple different ways. Currently, there's a request for information that is open from the US DOT. They're asking for jurisdictions such as yourselves, MPOs such as ours, to give input on the programs and funding streams that are important to us. So just want to draw it to your attention. We did share this with your technical committee members earlier this month and share a template letter from one of our trade organizations. MPO has one drafted and ready to go. We plan to submit that here shortly. The deadline was yesterday, was recently extended out to September 8th. Similar vein, our local congressman has been asking for information. You can just email it to his staff about programs that are important to your community. So that's broader than just transportation. The other thing to make you aware of is a request that the Transportation Secretary recently made to all the states there were soliciting projects that are going to be completed through the end of federal fiscal year 26 that will improve safety on non-high radar 2 corridors. So we're working with the Iowa DOT, we'll be pulling information from our TIP in order to supply the DOT with an overview of activity happening in the metro area that will improve safety on these corridors. Just want to make you aware that that is happening. That's it for me, unless you have any questions.
Thanks, you. Next, MPO funding process update. Bill.
Thank you. This is hopefully going to be a little more unique conversation, so forgive me as I walk through this slide. Just wanted our first process, as you might know, is every year we award funding for the TAP program and recently car production program. We start that in December, and it takes 4 or 5 months to run it goes cycle towards 6 weeks per tip. We are proposing to pause that for 1 year. There's a couple of reasons why we take that basis. Before I go into those reasons a little bit, I just want to confirm that we're not talking about not awarding those ever. We're just saying we deposit, then here's what the deposit one. So a couple of reasons why we need to do this. One is we just talked about with a couple of the previous items. We just completed last year the long-range transportation plan for like tomorrow, safety action plan. We have the economic impact study coming forth here in the next couple of months. All of those will have an impact on funding that we allocate. And we haven't had a chance to update our funding process to make sure we're accounting for how we implement safety recommendations from the comments. The other thing is going to spoke about legislatively. We are entering the final year of the transportation optimization bill that is set to expire at the end of September of 26. We would be awarding funds for federal fiscal year 2030 because we award funds 4 years in advance. So we would be, if we have been, awarding funds for years that have not been optimized. And with the way things have been going, these changes going on in DC and the Congress administration, we want to make sure that we are awarding funds that are going to be there first of all, and for projects that are still moving forward. There's been some talk that certain things that currently are eligible will become ineligible. We don't know exactly where that's going to go, but we had a conversation with the funding subcommittee during this last process. There was some hesitancy of are we good to award these funds? Or we have reasons no one wants to do that. So because of that, we think it might be good to just get pause. If we wait another year, that'll give us time to work with you, work with the tech committee, the funding subcommittee, and so forth, to see what kind of changes, how do we want to change the process, and also allow the federal process to play out a little bit more. By this time next year, we'll have a much better understanding of where things are at congressionally, with the optimization bill, what projects might still be eligible, how much funds we might accept to see. And again, everything will still be awarded. We did talk to the funds, to the executive committee and the tech committee. They were both supportive of the 1 year pause. They didn't necessarily want to get into a habit of every other year funding, and that's what some of the years do. Some of the years only work once every 2 years or as needed. They didn't necessarily like that idea, but a 1 year pause, they thought would be okay. So that's it. I think that's what I have prepared of. So really what we want to hear today is, what do you think of this idea? If you don't like that idea, we will quickly get something turned around. So we need some more funds this fall. It would be a rush process, we can do it. But if we all are in agreement, a lot of positives for that we would start having conversations over the next several months, workshopping what changes need to happen, how we go through this, and working with the tech committee, funding subcommittee, and so forth. So I'll pause there.
It'd be helpful to get a little more detail from the executive comments. Okay, because if this is a 1 year pause, get back on track, there's not a lot to talk about. But if we want to change our process, issue 2 years at a time, or the other people, then there's a lot more to try and go through. But,
and let me clarify, what we would be saying is we would take a 1 year pause. And in that 1 year, we would revamp the process or explore if we want to revamp the process. I assume we've got ideas of how to change the staff. Assume we've heard from our technical committee and even beyond the things we talked about here with the Congress and safety action plan and so forth. We just hear comments of this is too burdensome. Why are you asking these questions? You know, so we can streamline the process of the application. So we can make sure that it's just not too overwhelming for everybody. So there are changes that happen. That's what that 1 year pause allows, as well as let the federal stuff play out. I don't anticipate that we would get into it every other process unless we pause for a year and everyone's like, that went really well. Let's see that goes. That would be a conversation for them.
okay. I think it might be helpful to have that conversation. What time of year is helpful with everybody's CIPs being developed? It feels like if we knew the MPO allocations just a little bit sooner, especially if they're 1 year quicker, that in early fall might be more helpful. I think I want the technical committee and others to ponder that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Those are the types of things we want to hear about. What folks.
I was gonna have some similar comments to Scott, but what were the reasons given by the executive committee to object to whatever the other year process?
I think just the uncertainty of And then probably more from the tech committee. Explain this a little bit better, but when they go through their CIP, they like to know that they've got the funding, they get reawarded 4 years in advance, so by the time they get to their CIP process, to have the MPO funding awarded to them helps them plan out the projects a little better. So if they have to wait a year or two to get that guarantee, that just kind of throws things off. I think there's probably a way to get there. It would just be an adjustment for everybody. It's what they were saying is if they go and present a project to you, for example, as council members of theirs, and to be able to say we've got MPO money, kind of gives a little more momentum, makes the council a little more willing to provide funding as well. If you don't have that, that just doesn't happen.
That's true, but it's not synchronized with the federal
Exact
allocation, then
and if everyone knows that going in, then that's not the issue. But again, those are things we could work out. Those are some things. The other team, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I really think that our tech members are pretty used to it and acclimated to it, this process, and are treating MPO dollars as part of their funding stack. And I got the impression from the count that was made, but I really like to have it as part of my stack, so when I'm going to my council, I can say I'm X amount away, and now I'm closer to meeting my local objectives.
Is there any concern doing what they're doing?
Staff will have a outline prepared in September to talk about what we think the process could look like and areas that we should be looking at too, and give you something to react to next month.
Director's report.
Thank you. I've got a couple of things here for you. Next slide. A couple of key project updates. One on the Future 435, following that bill was passed this year, it called from DOT and MPO to study for the farm equipment. A couple of weeks ago, that RFP was released by the Iowa DOT. They're going to be on the more administrative side of the increase in RFP and hiring a consultant, that sort of thing, which help pay for it. Although we will be at the table of the consultant selection process. And I can't remember what the timeline has settled.
It was 3 weeks. I couldn't tell you the GF time.
So that'll be coming here on that as far as consultant selection and everything here the next month or so. Data mining is a big thing we work on this summer. Carl leads that up for us. He's not riding the bike. He's in charge of making sure the bike gets ridden by our other turn. Crazy. So that is pretty much wrapped up now. So here in the next couple of months, you will see reports coming out for what we found on that data bike ride. I think we'll have 2 different reports, one from last year, because we're crunching some numbers, we had a methodology in place, and then more in 2025. So just a heads up, we'll see that. Also on the bike ped related realm, several months ago, I should say the MPO allowed us to purchase a bunch of trail counters. If you came in on the back side here, you'll see a bunch of stuff stacked up. Those are the trail counters that just came in the other day. So we're going to be getting those out to the communities that have the trail counters coming to them, get them installed, so we're working with the communities to understand how the installation should go, where they're getting placed and all that kind of stuff. So we should have some really good data from a bunch of trail counters. And then finally, we mentioned a freight plan a couple of times. A survey did go out to the public and to the state, to the freight stakeholders here in the last couple of weeks. So that process is getting going with state inflation. So from manufacturers or something in your community, I got to say for the MPO, what is this? That's what you just want to understand about freight. Concerns there are, that sort of stuff. So that's a quick update on the projects. Operationally, a couple of things to note. The personnel committee met prior to this meeting today to talk about the direct review process. If you recall, last when I had my review this spring, Chair Holm asked for that committee to get together and develop a more consistent process to look at the timeline of that. So they are working on that. We should have something probably next month to run past you to see if that works for everybody. So I get further into that. Last month, this group is used to this. They don't meet in July, but we didn't have any meetings in July. We canceled the technical and executive meeting just because of lack of meeting agendas and stuff. That was a really good month to take a break and really reflect on some of the things we're doing and do some internal organization. Still working off of ancient servers, stuff that we've had kicking around digitally for years and years. So we're getting all that stuff moved to the cloud, getting to the 21st century. just gave a good time to do that, as well as look at our funding process and some of the stuff we have up here. So just, I don't want you to think that month was wasted. We did a lot of good internal stuff and we didn't have to work on. A couple of things for county. One of the things in the certification review that was requested or recommended was a review of our 28 review. And we talked about this, it's been a while since we did our 28 year look at that. So we have so we can move forward with some recommendations. Another thing that we're looking at in terms of operations, our office space. It's coming due here pretty soon. There's 18 months to 2 years or so. We're kind of start looking into that a little bit. Our IT support contract, we look at that. Our accounting or our auditing, I should say, our bylaws say that personal, sorry, our policies and procedures say that you should do that every 3 years or more. So all these things are coming up. And it's something that you'll hear more about. So, finally, one thing we talked about with exec, and I want to make sure we talk with you about is House File 706. I'll turn over to Scott to maybe explain what that is, what he's found, and how it applies to the
Most of you probably know about it from your own communities, but essentially the legislature has decided now that everyone needs to be trained on what's required in chapters 21 and 22, so open meetings, open records.
Are they included in the training? Oh,
But I think the issue, it really is, the question sort of came up was the members of the technical, they're appointed, so maybe they qualify as appointed officials. But do you really? They all need to go through that. I talked to Dylan about it and sort of and talked to the Public Information Board, Kelsey McKinney recommended that. The bottom line is what they're going to do is if they think you're in violation, if you're going to have training certification, they're going to send 60 emails. And so it's not like you're automatically in violation. So I think our best judgment is let's go ahead and not require the technical community folks to actually have to do the training. And then if we get a notice of violation, we can argue about it. Or we have 60 days. They do the trainings twice a month, and we get 60 days.
we want to make sure that we're compliant with this, but we also don't want to dissuade participation in the appeal process. So by having, if the chair appoints a long range plan committee or something like that, are we making all of that go with this training, or what exactly? And I think it made sense to us that anybody who reports to the executive committee, anybody who's subject to open records, is probably what it applies to. So that's the process we'll have.
So the funding they put on as well.
Correct, because they report to the executive committee. Unless we hear other questions. I'm talking about, I'm sure CMPO and organizations like NPOs are probably not the top of the list of what's really out there. Not that that means we shouldn't play with it, but.
Yes.
Those classes go up literally within hours.
One additional slide here, I think, just a look ahead. I've mentioned a few of these a couple of times on the left there. You can see a couple of big projects we got working on. The economic impact study, you'll hear more about that next few months. Aligned with DART's preventive DART process as their process from so that economic impact study also more presentation. You can see there on the September agenda what we know for now. I mentioned that we have the trail towards the money. I think that's all I have.
Sure. So I don't know about the other communities, but we have a lot of people on motorized vehicles, kids in general, trying to take it over town. So, I mean, so you got first e-bikes is one thing, but then you have all these other levels, and it's starting hard to, how do you discriminate or disseminate what's what? But I didn't know if other communities were having this trouble, but I do think we have to look at it because it's here and people have the wherewithal and the technology is there for kids to have these kind of vehicles at their disposal and they're using them.
And that is something we'll be looking at in the active
Okay,
transportation.
good, thank you.
It's come up in quite a few communities already, so, yeah, and actually Eric brought it up too.
A few years ago, we were looking at an e-scooter policy, and that was more when you had the rental companies coming in.
Right.
That's not so much the issue now, like you said, every kid's got a scooter.
That's, yeah, it's beyond the e-scooter, it's,
Those single wheel fast.
I saw one on the way here, going on East University over 35 miles an hour. In the fast lane, if you will, in the middle of traffic, I'm going, who's this guy standing up on a motorcycle? And I realized I could use a cycle.
well, yeah, so if we kind of have a, instead of all trying to do research and bending the wheel on it, so to speak, it'd be nice to have, them go, yeah, use, help us get some research to, that we can, hang on to without.
My understanding is the Chiefs Association is also talking about this.
Probably.
And they are, I've asked our chief to come up with a recommendation. That's.
I know, we have two, but it seems it's gonna be hard for them to do that. but-
Yes. So nobody really has tackled it just yet, so that's what we're finding, is it's kind of a nationwide issue. But there isn't really a model that's out there.
It's an enforcement issue too. I mean, how do you enforce that on the trails? Well, unless you put police officers out there, and then that's cost prohibitive, right?
It's going over 10 years.
Yes.
Take their limits. Other items of interest. Hearing none, we can move on. Our next meeting is on September 8th at 4 p.m. And I entertain a motion to adjourn. By Moines, second by Metropolitan, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.
They're not gonna. I mean, I